Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson, which I gave the title No. I gave it the title No because in this English lesson, we're going to look at about 30 different signs that you'll find in public places that tell you what you're not allowed to do. And that's the English phrase we use to talk about behavior that you aren't allowed to do. Sorry, I just defined it by using the term. Sometimes when you drive somewhere, you are not allowed to park in certain places. When you go to a restaurant, you are not allowed to bring your own food into a restaurant, at least in my part of the world. So I thought it would be fun to do an English lesson where I talk about all of the different things you're not allowed to do. You can see I have no parking here, and we'll do it by looking at all the different signs that you'll see that tell you not to do that thing. No smoking. So I'm not sure what the laws are in your country. In Canada, at least in my province, you are no longer allowed to smoke indoors in any public areas. So there are a lot of no smoking signs when you go places. They also now say no vaping as well. I should have added that to the slide. But if you are someone who smokes cigarettes, and if you are in a restaurant and you see this sign, it means no smoking. If you ever go on an airplane, you'll usually see that sign right above you. I guess a long time ago, they used to let people smoke on planes, but it's certainly not allowed anymore. And again, not allowed is the phrase we use to talk about behaviors that you aren't supposed to do. So when you're on a plane, there's no smoking. In Canada, when you're in a restaurant, there's no smoking as well. So no smoking, no vaping. Again, I should have added that to the slide. No parking. Sometimes you drive somewhere, and when you drive somewhere, you have to find a place to park. You need a place to put your car while you go shopping or while you go to a restaurant. But often when you go somewhere, parking is limited. That means there aren't enough parking spaces for everybody. And so you might see something like this, no parking. And then underneath it might say, this parking spot belongs to the restaurant owner, or some other reason why you aren't allowed to park there. Sometimes on a city street, there might be a fire hydrant, and then there will be a no parking sign because the fire department doesn't want you to block the fire hydrant just in case there's a fire. So no parking means you can't leave your car there. And there's an internet meme right now, or there has been for a while, where their car breaks down or they get stuck in the mud, and then someone will yell, "Hey bud, you can't park there." And it's kind of funny because they didn't decide to park there, but still kind of a funny joke. No loitering. So I'm not sure if you've ever seen this one or if you're familiar with the word loitering. When you loiter, it means you are in an area kind of doing nothing. You're just kind of hanging around. And there are places where they will have signs like this that say no loitering. A good example would be if you go to the airport, by the front doors of the airport, there's often a sign that says no loitering. They don't want people standing around in a high traffic area, especially at an airport where security is really high. You either need to walk to your gate and check in, or you need to go home, or you need to find a place where they have benches where you're allowed to sit. But if you see a sign that says no loitering, it means you aren't allowed to be in that area doing nothing. Sometimes stores close to high schools have signs like this. They don't want teenagers standing around in front of the store. So they have a sign that says no loitering. No fishing. I'm not sure what the rules are or what the laws are in your country, but here you need a license to go fishing, and you are only allowed to fish in certain areas. So sometimes you'll go to a park and they'll have a beautiful lake and it might have some beautiful fish in it. And maybe you're hungry, but there might be a sign that says no fishing. And you can see the sign has a fish and the little hook coming down. It simply means that the law or the rules for that area dictate that you are not allowed to fish. So you can't get your fishing rod, you can't put bait on the hook, you can't cast your line into the water. You are not allowed to fish in that area. No fishing. And often this is to preserve the fish that do live there, because we don't want to overfish an area so that the fish disappear. No littering. Now, I'm not sure why we need signs for this, but littering is throwing garbage on the road. You drink a cup of coffee on the road, on the ground, sorry. You drink a cup of coffee and you throw it on the ground. You eat a candy bar or chocolate bar, and then you throw the wrapper on the ground. That is littering. Littering is basically, in my opinion, littering should be illegal everywhere in the world. You should not be allowed to litter. No one should ever throw their garbage on the ground. You should throw your garbage in a garbage can or a trash can. You should throw it in the recycling bin if it's recyclable. Please, what are my mottos on this channel? Be kind. And then maybe the second one is don't litter. So again, littering is throwing things on the ground, throwing garbage on the ground. No entry and no exit. So no entry simply means that you are not allowed to go past that point. Maybe you're driving your car and there is an entrance to a factory, and there might be a sign that says no entry. You are not allowed to go in there. You don't work there. It's not a park. It's private property. That means someone else owns it. So they might have a sign that says no entry, basically saying, don't drive past this point. When you go for a hike in a park, the trail might end and there might be someone's house and yard there. And the person might have signs that say no entry, saying, hey, whoa, this isn't the park anymore. This is my lawn. You are not allowed to come in here. So no entry means you can't go past that point. No exit. This is most commonly seen on roads that don't have a way for you to get out if you enter this area. I'm not explaining this well. If you look at this sign in this area, it means the road ends and you can't get out unless you turn around and come back out the way you went in. So sometimes in Ontario, Canada, we have what are called cul-de-sacs, which is a part of a subdivision where there's no exit. You can enter it, but unless you turn around and come out the way you came in, you cannot exit. So no exit means either you live there, you're making a delivery, or if you drive into this area, you'll have to turn around in order to get out. No trespassing. So I wasn't sure if trespassing was a familiar word for you. When you have no trespassing, it means don't go on my property. So a lot of farms will have signs that say no trespassing. We don't want people to walk on our crops or drive their snowmobiles on our crops or their four-wheelers. So we put up signs that say no trespassing. It basically means you are not allowed to be on this property. And if you see here, violators will be prosecuted. A violator is someone who doesn't obey the rule, so who decides to trespass. And to be prosecuted means the cops will arrest you and you will be charged with trespassing. So no trespassing means don't come on my property. No hunting. Similar to no fishing, if you see a sign that says no hunting, it means you can't take your gun or your bow and arrow and go and hunt for animals. In Ontario, Canada, we have a lot of forests and woods and what we call the bush. And if the bush is owned by someone, they might put up signs that say no hunting. It doesn't mean they can't hunt, but they might want to tell other people, hey, I'm the only one that's allowed to hunt here. You are not allowed to. So no hunting. And in the same vein-ish, you sometimes will see signs that say no camping. So people, I've mentioned the word private property a lot. So my farm is private property. I own the farm. It's my land. it is private property. So I don't want people to camp on our land. I don't want people to pull over and hunt on my land. I don't want people to fish on my land. If they ask permission, I will often say yes. But mostly, the biggest one would be camping. If everyone in the world obeyed the no littering rule, I think farmers would be more open to having people camp on their land. By the way, camping is when you have a tent and you sleep outside and you enjoy living in the great outdoors for a couple of days. But in my opinion, many campers are also very messy. And so if you see a sign like this, it means you are not allowed to camp there. By the way, in Canada, we have lots of campgrounds where people can camp. No swimming. These signs are often accompanied with the word danger, similar to no diving. So no swimming. You will see signs like this where it's dangerous to swim. If you're familiar with something called an undertow, when the waves come to the shore, the water goes back under the waves, and that current can be very strong. So often in places where there is a strong undertow, there will be a sign that says no swimming. There also might be things in the water that make it dangerous. Maybe someone put a whole bunch of old cars in the water. I know there's a place close to me where there's some junk in the water, and then there is a no swimming sign because it's dangerous to swim there. When you see a sign that says no diving, it means you can swim usually, but you can't jump in head first. When you jump in head first, like this is a normal jump, this is a dive. I think you know what I mean. It's usually because of shallow water or because there might be rocks or other things in the water that make it dangerous. So no swimming means you can't swim at all. No diving usually means you can swim, you just can't dive headfirst into the water. No fires. This is a big one in Ontario, Canada right now. In my area, I think we're on a fire ban. If you go north of here, it's quite, they've gotten a lot of rain, but here the lawn is starting to turn brown. And certainly further north, like a little bit north of me, it's very green and you can have fires. But if you go far north in Ontario, there are actual forest fires and wildfires right now. So no fires are allowed there at all. So if you're camping, you can't have a fire. If you want to invite your family over, you can't have a fire. No fires allowed. No dogs, no pets. So there are some places where you will see signs that say no dogs allowed. Dog owners really like taking their dogs a lot of places, and sometimes it's just not a good idea. If I go to the movie theater, I don't want to hear someone's dog barking while I'm watching the movie. Now, we do make exceptions for this because we have what are called companion animals. So people who have physical challenges might have a dog that helps them with their eyesight or guides them. Or it might just be an animal that they have as a therapy animal, which makes them calmer. So that type of animal is usually allowed almost everywhere because they're trained to be around people. But I can't take Walter to the movie theater. That wouldn't work. No pets. This is another sign about animals, obviously, but it includes all animals. So when you go on a plane, you can't take your dog or your cat. There are no pets allowed on a plane. I don't know if they actually have a sign that says that, but no pets means you cannot bring your pets into that area. No off-road vehicles. So this one is more common in the countryside. An off-road vehicle is anything that you ride for pleasure, like it's a vehicle you ride because it's enjoyable. So that would include things like snowmobiles, ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, or dirt bikes, or mini bikes, or even e-bikes now a little bit. But no off-road vehicles simply means don't drive here with your four-wheel drive ATV. Please don't do that. We are seeing these signs more often in Ontario, Canada, because more and more people have these types of vehicles and they're looking for somewhere to drive it for fun. So if you see this sign, it basically means no off-road vehicles. No food or drink past this point. So no food or drink is something you might see in an area where they don't want people to eat. So this might be, I'm trying to think of a place, like most libraries have this sign, or they have an area where you're allowed to eat. And there's probably an area where there's no food or drink. I'm trying to think besides a library, what type of place would have this sign? Yeah, I think a library is probably the best example for now. So if you see no food or drink, it means you can't take food in that area. It might also say drinks. Sometimes we add an S, sometimes we don't. So it might say no food or drinks past this point, or no food or drink past this point. Both would be correct. And then this is an interesting one. So this is no outside food or drink. So what this means, and I'm not sure how this works around the world, but if I go to McDonald's, I cannot bring food with me to McDonald's. If I go into the restaurant, I must buy their food and I must buy a drink from them. And I'm allowed to eat that in their restaurant, but I'm not allowed to bring food from outside. So quite often you will see a sign like this on a restaurant, no outside food or drink. It means you can't pack a lunch and go to the restaurant and sit at one of their tables and eat it. I think movie theaters also have this rule, although it's pretty common to sneak food into the movie theater. Quite often people will go to a dollar store and buy snacks, and then they'll sneak them into the theater. But technically, the rule at the movie theater is no outside food or drink. You're not allowed to bring stuff in from the outside. Another one that's somewhat humorous, no shirt, no shoes, no service. This is possibly a cultural one as well, but generally in Canada and in the United States and most places, if you aren't wearing a shirt and if you are in bare feet, like you don't have shoes or socks on, you can't go to a restaurant. Okay, so basically what they're saying, no shirt, no shoes, we are not serving you. So you'll see signs that say this, no shirt, no shoes, no service, which is basically saying, hey, if you're coming into our restaurant, it's almost always a restaurant, although it could be a store. They're basically saying, hey, you need a shirt on and you need shoes on or sandals or some other footwear. And if you don't, we are not going to sell you food. I think mostly this is related to cleanliness and hygiene and food safety. I think if everyone walked in and out of a restaurant in bare feet, that could be an issue. By the way, this is not a problem in the winter in Canada. This is only a summer problem for us. No photography, no video recording. So this is a sad one for me. What I have run into lately is that because of YouTubers and TikTokers who do prank videos, these signs are starting to show up more and more in public places in Canada. So the last video I made at the mall, they actually asked me to leave, and they explained to me that I had to leave because they had new rules and they were enforcing them because of young people doing prank videos. So what they had was they had someone recording on the lower level of the mall, and then they had their friends were pouring water onto people from the upper level, and the people down below were videotaping it to put it on YouTube or TikTok. It's becoming a bit of a problem in many parts of the world where people are starting to videotape strangers who have not given their permission to be in a video. And so these signs are popping up everywhere. I think it's going to become more and more challenging for me to make English lessons in public places because of people who are doing pranks. It's just, I don't agree with videotaping, doing something to someone to make them react, and then videotaping them without their permission. I think it's very, very rude. So in some ways, I'm happy about these rules, but as a YouTuber, it's a little bit frustrating because I have plans for some videos where I have to figure out, okay, how do I get permission to videotape in this area, etc., etc. Anyways, we'll see. No photography, no video recording. No soliciting. So this is an interesting one because you might not know the word soliciting, but this means to come up to someone's door and to try and sell them something. So you see here, it says no soliciting, no exceptions, do not ring bell or knock, no politics, no salesmen, no estimates, no charity, no magazines, no religion, no menus, no excuses. Thank you. So this person very much does not want people to come to their door to try and sell them something or to talk to them. So again, soliciting means to try to sell someone something. So I think many, many years ago, there were door-to-door salesmen or door-to-door salespeople, and it's not very common anymore in Canada. I think the telemarketers replaced the door-to-door people. No returns, no refunds. When you buy something, it might be all sales final. So this often happens in a clothing store when they have clothes from last year or the year before that aren't popular or in style anymore. They might have a rack that says 90% off. Like you can buy this pair of jeans for $3, but all sales final, no returns. It means you cannot bring those jeans back, that pair of pants, if you don't like them, okay? Most often, 99% of the time, when you buy things from a store in Canada, you can return them. Certain things you can't, but if I buy a shirt and I take it home and it just doesn't fit, or maybe it gets a tear the first day, I can usually return it and get a full refund. So again, no refunds means that if you bring something back, you will not get your money back. This is most often used more for something that's not an actual thing. A good example would be buying a ticket for a concert. You know, it's just on my phone. There's nothing I can return, but I might want a refund. And so this sign says no refund or exchanges. So an exchange is when you bring it back and they give you something else. A refund is when you bring it back and they give you your money. No running, no horseplay. These are most commonly seen around swimming pools. When our kids were younger, we would go to a park that had a large swimming pool, and there were signs that said no running. The area around the pool can get wet and slippery, and it's very easy to slip and fall. The other reason I think is lifeguards don't like seeing people run around a pool. It makes them afraid that something bad is happening. So no running in pool area, a very common place where running is not allowed. And I wasn't sure if you were aware of the word horseplay. So this sign says no running or horseplay. Horseplay just refers to when kids are like pushing each other, wrestling, throwing water at each other, just doing silly things. And in a pool area, they generally don't want any horseplay because water is dangerous. If you and your brother are wrestling and one of you falls in the water and bumps your head on the bottom of the pool, that would be a bad thing. So no horseplay. I guess that's what horses do. I'm not sure where the word comes from. No dumping. So this is one that is very important to me when you live out in the countryside. I believe in the UK they call this tipping, but in Canada we call it dumping. So here there's a sign, it says no dumping, and someone came and dumped out all their garbage. So I'm not sure why this is starting to happen more often. We do have garbage collection in Ontario, Canada. We do have free recycling, but still every once in a while I will be out for a walk and I will see bags of garbage in the ditch. And then I need to call the township and they will send someone out to clean it up. Sometimes people will also dump tires, used tires. they'll just dump them on the side of the road. So no dumping means don't treat this area like it's the dump. And if you don't know what a dump is, search Bob the Canadian, the dump. And there's a video of me teaching English at the dump, which probably isn't allowed anymore. I'm sure they have a sign now that says no photography, no video recording. No wake. I'm going to guess most of you don't know this one. Jen asked me what no wake meant, but no wake means that you can't drive your boat really fast in this particular piece or body of water. When you drive a boat slowly, it doesn't create any small waves behind it. But when you drive quickly or fast, it makes waves which are called a wake. And so if you are close to the shore where people live, you'll often see a sign that says no wake, which means you aren't allowed to drive your boat fast in that area. No alcohol allowed on these premises. This is common in some places in Canada. Like, you're not allowed to have alcohol in the mall. You can have alcohol in a restaurant, but generally in public places in Ontario, Canada, you can't have alcohol. So this is even true sometimes of, they might have a family-friendly event or concert, and they might say no alcohol allowed on these premises. By the way, premises simply means in this building or in this area. No overnight parking. So I don't know why, but there's laws that say you cannot park on the side of the road from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. I think that's my area. You're just not allowed to park on the side of the road. I don't know what the rule's for, but it's called no overnight parking. And then it says unauthorized vehicle towed at vehicle owner's expense. This means if I park my car on the side of the road, probably not the first night, but by the second night, they're going to call a tow truck. The police would call a tow truck, and they would pick up my car and bring it to an impound yard. So no overnight parking in Ontario, Canada, in most places, just not allowed. No engine brake. This is similar to no wake in that I don't think most of you will know what this means. Generally, these signs appear close to towns and cities, and they refer to large trucks using their engine to slow them down. And I'm sure you've heard this. It sounds like, so basically you have a pedal which is connected to the brakes on the wheels, but on a large truck you can also use the engine as a brake. And so you can basically, I'm not sure exactly how it works. We sometimes call it a Jake brake, but it is a very loud way to begin slowing a large truck down. So you'll often see signs like this that say no engine brake, no Jake brake allowed in this area. There's one on the way to market because trucks often use their engine brake when they're going down the steep hill to that town. And then people are trying to sleep, right? They don't want to hear. That wasn't a good one. It's much lower. It's like, that might have been a better one. Anyways, no engine brake.